Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hour SF Hour with Raj. I'm your host for tonight, Ryan. How's it going, Raj?
I'm good, man. It's been a busy week, but it's been fun. If you're a 49er fan, I mean, I think you had a pretty good week, so I'm doing good.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Great to see what San Francisco's been doing. Re-signing Trent Williams, bringing Alex Mack in, like we talked about on last week's show. If you missed last week's show, make sure you tune in. It's available on YouTube right here. Yeah, it's available on YouTube, so make sure you go back and watch that. We break down what we expected to happen, or what Raj expected to happen, and hey, Alex Mack is now a member of the 49ers. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, and that's basically like you said. Going off of last week's show, you asked me what do I think the big free agency move or something that we can expect, and that was pretty much what I thought. I thought Alex Mack was a guy because they needed to stabilize that center position, and they didn't have so much money to play with because they were trying to get Trent Williams and all their other guys they were trying to get. So Mack made a lot of sense, and that's huge. He's a perennial Pro Bowler. He was all pro or all decade team center. He was named to the list with Joe Staley. So you have two guys that were probably the best at their position over the last decade on the O line. That bolsters the line. We get Trent back. That was huge, man. I think Alex Mack, to me, out of all the moves, that was probably my favorite because we needed a center. They needed to really fix that spot. We talked about that last week. They went through 6 people that played center, and that's just not going to get it cut. Stability is really, really, really important on the O line, and I think that was big. And the way it happened, it's so crazy. Last week was such a blur, kind of when you look back at it. So busy getting all the news out, I was seeing all the notifications, following all the posts and stuff. I was so upset at myself because the night all the news dropped about Trent Williams, because I was up on top of everything. The night Trent Williams dropped his news, and people know this because I went live and talked about this. Every Niner fan that follows my page, my page is big. They were blowing me up. My phone, I woke up to a mess, and it's funny because Alex Mack on his inaugural press conference the other day, he said the same thing. He goes, "I didn't even know I was going to get signed with the Niners." He goes, "We were talking, but I didn't know it was official." He goes, "Because Trent Williams leaked it that night. He posts on his Instagram story, a picture of Alex, and it said Alex Mack. So everybody's like, 'Oh my God, it's Alex Mack going to sign?'" And then I think it was ESPN or Chef or somebody reported Rappaport reported he's expected to sign with the Niners. He didn't know. I was sleeping. I didn't know. I didn't get to break the news. I was a little upset that I didn't, see all that happen live. But when I woke up, I mean, I was didn't have a post up. But yeah, Alex Mack posted. Everybody was celebrating at night. It was a crazy night, but it was so funny to hear him say, "Oh, yeah, I was sleeping. I woke up. My phone was a mess." Because that's literally, I woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, we got Trent Williams and Alex Mack." It was just like,
Yeah.
I'll never forget waking up and I see my phone. It was like, I remember it said 200 notifications. I was like, what's going on? My text messages, I had 50 text messages. I opened up Instagram, my DMs. I had over 1,000 messages of people saying, "Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. We got Trent, we got Alex." Oh my God. It was a wild night. I wish I was part of that night, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm just happy we got those guys.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And, Williams is probably the best offensive lineman on the market, and you could argue a steal. And he's a 6-year, $138 million guy. I think that's one of the most expensive offensive lineman deals ever. And I think he's going to be worth every penny for it. And, Shanahan's cooked up a tremendous run scheme. And you now have Mack, who he worked with in Atlanta. You have Trent Williams, who is as good of a left tackle as anyone in the National Football League. I still like Laken Tomlinson. Mike McGlinchey's had his moments. San Francisco's going to have a really sturdy offensive line moving forward, and that just helps out play action game. You get Jimmy in, you get Kittle in, you get Debo, Ayuk, and then you're clearing massive holes from whatever random running back decides to go off that week, whether it's Mostert or McKinnon if you bring him back, or Tevin Coleman.
No, Jeff Wilson Jr. People sleep on Jeff Wilson and Jermichael Hasty, the undrafted.
I like Hasty.
He had a broken collarbone, but he'll probably be back. But yeah, Mostert and Wilson, and you made the perfect point. The play action game, the way that Shanahan runs his offense, it's all run based. It's based off the run. Now you've got this great run game or this O line. Like you said, Trent Williams became the highest paid tackle in the NFL. He got a big contract, and everybody's like, I don't know, 6 years. The contract's so good because the first year the cap hits less than $10 million, so they backloaded it like always. Gave him some flexibility. It's 2-3-year contracts essentially. So after 3 years, if he wants to walk away, he takes the $55 million guaranteed. He can go do what he needs to do. He can probably get a ring in these next 3 years with this team. Alex Mack, it's also a 3-year deal, so it gives them some flexibility. But the 3-year deal, it's more like a year at a time. They can kind of take it year by year. Good deals, two solid players. And like you said, the play action game, man, that's how this offense is built. And if they're going to keep Jimmy for a year or whoever the quarterback is, you're going to have good protection. And they also brought Brunskill back. A lot of people don't really talk about that move back a lot. He was a solid player. He's good at guard. I like him at guard. Of course, last year they had to shift him all over the line because of the injuries. But I think if he stays at that right guard spot, I think he's solid there. You got McGlinchey. He's had his moments. Great run blocker. Good run blocker. He has to fix his, skills at pass protection. But this could be a make or break year, They still haven't picked up the 5th-year option, but Shanahan says he expects to. So this is basically, hey, this year, last year with this. If you want to continue to play and get a big contract, prove yourself. So they're kind of putting McGlinchey in a spot where he has to succeed or he's gone. And then I like what you said. Lakin, underrated player. That left side with him and Trent, I think they'll only get better together. But, yeah, Trent Williams, man, that was such a money sign. And everybody was stressing all week because all week we were like waiting for an update. Anytime there was a Trent Williams update, people were having heart attacks. Like, oh, my God, did he? And then they were saying, okay, the Colts are in on it. Now the Chiefs are in on it. And the next day when all the details come out, I was pretty happy because, the Chiefs, they beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. We talked about that. Heartbreak City. But the reports, I think, I can't remember who reported on it. Maybe it was Albert Breer. I can't remember. But they said basically Patrick Mahomes was texting Trent Williams like, hey, come to Kansas City. And he turned down Patrick Mahomes to stay with the Niners. That made me happy. But also the other part of that contract was when David Bakhtiari, he tweeted out, man, you're petty AF when he saw the details of the contract because Trent basically got $10,000 more annually than Bakhtiari so he could become the highest paid. So Bakhtiari's like, man, you're petty, but good luck. You deserved it.
That's beautiful.
But overall, man, yeah, this O-line, I'm super happy. And the other part of that O-line that people aren't talking about enough is Kyle Juszczyk came back also. They signed him, and he's so important for the run game, the blocking. You're going to have a healthy Kittle. You got Kyle Juszczyk back. They got the highest, the best fullback in the league. They got him back for the offense. Trent Williams, Alex Mack, and everybody else. I'm so happy for this team, man. And I think the offense is ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, the 2019 49ers were one of the best offenses in the NFL. If I remember correctly, second in scoring, which is no small feat when Patrick Mahomes is out there slinging footballs.
Yeah.
And it was a special offense in 2019. There's a reason they were able to go to the Super Bowl and contend in the Super Bowl. And I have $5 on the 49ers to win the division, and I think I have a good investment.
I think you do too, man. I really think you do. I think the Niners, they really set themselves up well this offseason for the draft because they got their big three. Like, you got to realize they got Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and Jason Verrett. Those were the three big, priorities the Niners were looking for. Every Niner fan would tell you, prior to last week, if we can get Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and Jason Verrett, I'll be happy. And they did it. Somehow they managed to do it. Shout out to the front office, John Lynch, Parag Marath. And they did what they had to do to get these guys back. And now they're entering the draft in a good position where they don't really need a big time. Like, they don't really have a hole. They can get the best available. They can trade back. Or if they want to, they say, hey, let's get this guy. Let's trade up. So they have a lot of options now in the draft.
And I think one thing that's added to this allure of the San Francisco draft is that Kyle Fuller, just went to Denver. So Denver's probably off the cornerback market.
Yeah.
So that means Farley drops a little bit, J.C. Horn drops a little bit, Surtain drops a little bit. So if you want to go get a corner, you're probably going to have one right there at 12, and it's probably going to be Farley or Surtain. Those are generally the 1 and the 2. And you could probably trade back a little bit and get Horn. So if you're San Francisco, you're thrilled that one of the teams that needed a corner just signed a guy rather than going after one in free agency. Or maybe you're thrilled that Kenny Galladay's in New York. So New York's not going to draft an offensive weapon. So if you want to have a Kyle Pitts, George Kittle show, hello, you want Devontae Smith?
We did talk about that last week where now they did put themselves in a position where at number 12, they really can go and get Kyle Pitts. I mean, I don't even know. That'd be
that would be. Kyle Pitts and George Kittle, you would have probably the best pure receiving tight end I think I've ever seen in college, Kyle Pitts. And then you have the number one tight end in the NFL. That's scary. And if there's any tight end that avoids that first year dip, it's Pitts, because he is. I mean, I think a lot of people have him as weapon number one. Like if you moved him to wide receiver, he's better than Smith, better than Chase, better than Waddle, better than Bateman, and that's insane to see. And if I were a 49er fan, I'd be over the moon to have Pitts and Kittle together. But I would be over the moon to have a lot of different guys that you are going to have available at 12 or trade back. And if you're still not sold on Jimmy G, I think you have enough draft capital that you could say, hey, let's trade up and get Fields or Wilson, or maybe not Wilson, but
probably not that
Lance. Trey Lance in San Francisco is scary.
Fields or Lance, I think, are realistic at this point. And like I said, the Niners, they put themselves in prime position for this draft. Exactly what you said. They could trade up, trade back. Let's say, we like J.C. Horn, let's trade back. And they can acquire another pick and say, hey, we like this guy, Azeez Ojulari on the D-line. Let's add him or something like that. Or like you said, sit at 12. Surtain's going to fall in their lap, or Kyle Pitts, or Waddle maybe. There's so many different possibilities. Or they could just take the best tackle that's available. Probably Slater might be there now, and then they can have even a stronger O-line. And we talked about McGlinchey earlier, how if he doesn't come back next season, you got this guy Slater who can just take his spot, and possibilities are crazy now.
Oh, I'm really liking the idea. You pick Slater at 12, you play him at right guard, and then if McGlinchey sucks, gets out of town, whatever, then you just say, hey, Slater, you're going to move over to right tackle, and poof, you have a really good right tackle for the future, and you don't have to worry about Mike McGlinchey at all, and you have a seamless transition there. And I think guard is a much more replaceable position. We saw Mike Onwenu for New England, who was a 6th-round pick, and he's one of the best guards in the NFL all of a sudden. So if you can just scout well, you can find a productive guard in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, moving deeper into the draft. Tackle, sometimes you need to get that blue chipper. You need to get the Penny Sewell. You need to get the Slater. You need to get, last year there were the 4 huge tackles with Wills, Thomas, Becton, and Wirfs.
Wirfs was money, man. I mean, God, that kid is. That kid is unbelievable. If you can get a guy like him, like you said, at 12, and you're right, you can play him at guard, because he even said he wouldn't mind playing guard in a team if they want him to, and he's versatile enough where I think he can transition. And then, if McGlinchey leaves the next season, slide him over. Guard is easier to replace than a tackle. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I don't want to say tackle is miles more important than guard, but tackle is definitely a more of a one-on-one thing. So you want to have more stability there. But when you're on the interior, most teams, you're not going to have left guard matchup with one defensive player, center matchup with one, right guard matchup with one. So if you're Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, you're on an island a lot of the times, and you're tasked with, hey, there's not Aaron Donald, Leonard Williams, Chandler Jones. Hey, there's a guy standing across from you. Stop him. Yeah. While the guys in the interior can double team, block here and there. They're not. This is why Aaron Donald deals with doubles and triples more often than anyone else in football. And say TJ Watt doesn't.
So exactly. And with the NFC West, they have such good. They added JJ Watt. Like you said, you got Chandler Jones. On that tackle spot, you're going to be going up against some of these just unbelievable players at defensive end. So you want to have the best tackles, because you're right. In the interior, it's a little bit easier to kind of double team, and then you can bring in Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk to add to get some of those double teams, triple teams going. But it's all about those tackles. And if you can't pass block on the edges, it's over, and they're going to come right to your quarterback.
Yeah, Eric Flowers didn't work because he couldn't pass pro at left tackle. So it's left guard, he's less of a liability, and that's the important thing. And can be the scary thing when you're switching around offensive linemen, like what the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl, when you're moving Remmers from one tackle to the other tackle, and you're just moving people around. It breaks the chemistry of the line, and that's something that the really good O-lines, Indianapolis, Green Bay, they got chemistry locked down. All of their guys were playing 15, 16 games, and then when you see Costanzo retire or Bakhtiari get hurt, that's a massive blow to that unit, more so than, you're losing. I mean, Bakhtiari is an all-pro caliber left tackle. Costanzo's a Pro Bowl guy. You're losing a guy, but if you're screwing up the entire chemistry, like I know Colts fans, oh yeah, let's move Quentin Nelson over to left tackle, then you probably get worse at left tackle.
Yeah.
You definitely get worse at left guard because you're not getting Quentin Nelson back.
Yes.
And you're screwing up the left guard center like communication, so you're making Ryan Kelly a little bit worse. And it's just I like what San Francisco is doing, and they're like bringing back Williams, bringing back Kittle, obviously, bringing back Juice. So you're solidifying that, and then the guy that you do bring in, center that you bring in, is familiar with the system at the very least.
Yeah.
So you're not getting, say, a rookie that has never played in the Shanahan system. You're getting a guy that, while he's new to the team, he's a veteran and he's played in the Shanahan system. And didn't he play with Shanahan as OC in Cleveland too?
Yeah, he played with Shanahan in Cleveland and in Atlanta. So this guy, he's been around Shanahan for many years before. He knows the system. It's going to be a seamless transition, and also he's a veteran. So
right.
He's going to come in. He's going to help these young kids. And if they draft a center in the draft, that he can mentor him, because that's the type of guy you get with Mac. He's a very, very good veteran, and he's going to come in, and it's just good for the locker room. You always like to have those guys. And to have Trent Williams and Alex Mack as your veteran linemen, that's just so good for the locker room. I think we have established like a solid we've established a solid amount of good key players that can really lead these young guys, because they're going to draft a lot of players this year. They're going to have 9 draft picks. Whether they use all 9 or not is to be determined. Because I could see Shanahan and Lynch making some trades. They always do. But to have guys like Kittle, Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and Alex Mack, those 4 guys on the offense, such good leaders, and they're going to come in and really help. And that's why I like Mack a lot, just because not because he just knows the system, but he's going to be a tremendous leader, man. I could tell he's just going to be one of those clubhouse guys where everybody's like, I like this guy, So,
right.
Good move.
And that's really important when you have a team that underachieved big time last year. That it's like hopes in the locker room were kind of dashed, when Jimmy gets hurt and Kittle gets hurt and your entire defense gets hurt. It's like you're kind of bummed. But then you bring in a veteran, a guy that's been to a Super Bowl before, a guy that's been very successful as an individual player. He wants a ring, and Trent Williams wants a ring. He has all the individual accolades, and it's you're like building a strong culture. And it's such a cliche. It's like, oh well, you hire Saleh and you have this new culture up in New York. That's not really how culture works. You need the players to buy in, and you need consecutive free agency periods worth of players to buy in. You need Alex Mack to buy in, Trent Williams last year. You need your rookies to buy in. And I think that's one thing that San Francisco is doing really well. That, they were 5-11, 6-10 last year.
Yeah, but the injuries, and like you said, all their key guys were hurt. But but the way they talk and the way they've just went about this offseason is they believe in Shanahan, and that's what they always say. And then everything that the sense in the locker room is, we believe, we're committed. When you get a guy like Alex Mack and Trent Williams, they're older guys. They want a championship. They're here. They believe. They wouldn't have signed if they didn't think they were going to make a run to the Super Bowl. Especially Alex Mack, late mid-30s. Why would he sign with the team if he didn't think he's going to get a chance to get a Super Bowl? So he knows this team is locked and loaded. They just have to stay healthy and avoid last season's blunders, because if they can stay healthy, this team is dangerous. And it's not just the offense we've talked about. I kind of want to go and switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
We made some moves on defense too, not huge signings, but they were good. And I think they were really smart little moves that could go a long way. They brought in a new defensive end, Samson Ebukam from the LA Rams. That was a big move. Going to give Bosa some help. They brought back Jason Verrett. He bet on himself. Only a 1-year deal. I was a little surprised it didn't go longer, but he's going to put in they put some incentives on there. So if he tears it up and he makes Pro Bowl, kid can make a lot of money, and then he can get a bigger contract. So I like Jason, man. They gave him a chance when nobody else would, and he rewarded him back. They brought in Emmanuel Mosley back, a good solid second cornerback, good depth. Whether he's a starter or not is to be determined. But, like we talked about in the draft, they can get a corner. Emmanuel Mosley's great depth. We knew we were going to lose some guys like Akello. He went to Seattle, but I really like bringing back Mosley. And then DJ Jones. Not enough people talking about DJ Jones. This guy is a solid defensive lineman. Injuries have really hurt his career, but I think now with, you got Ebukam, you got Bosa coming back, you got Kinlaw, you got Armstead, and then you got DJ Jones in there. That's a pretty solid front, and now they can just keep building in the draft. So I really like what they did defensively overall. And that guy, Ebicam, I think he has potential. He's 25 years old. They said that they're going to play him at defensive end. Forward, he's had the injury history, so we don't know if he's going to be back. He restructured his deal to free up a little bit more cap space because his contract was monster. So that's going to give him a little bit more cap flexibility, which helped him get a guy like Ebicam. And I think this kid could be good because last season we signed Kerry Hyder, and he, sky's the limit on that guy. He went off and led the team in sacks. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Chris Kasurik, D-line coach, I think is going to have a really good impact on this guy. 25 years old, playing defensive end. I think he'll really get his motor running and get the most out of this guy. I think he can have like an 8-9 sack season, take some pressure off Bosa. You draft a guy in the draft, and you're going to have a really solid D-line.
Yeah, the one thing about this year's edge class is that you don't have like a top guy. You don't have a Bosa. You don't have a Chase Young. You don't have a Watt. But you do have a lot of guys that can land between 20 and 40. So you have Kwity Paye. You talked about Ojolari earlier. You have everyone from Miami. Roche, Phillips.
Rousseau. Yeah.
Good guys. You have like probably 12 random edge guys that can, if it's the right fit, they might go 20. If it's the wrong fit, they might not go until middle of round 2.
Yeah.
San Francisco with the 43rd pick, right?
Yeah, 43rd.
Okay, so they're in a great spot that if Phillips falls, Roche falls, Patrick Jones from Pittsburgh falls, if anyone falls and you think they're a good enough fit in San Francisco, you're getting a first-round talent at 43.
Yeah,
you're getting, with the whole quarterback stuff, you're probably getting a top 10 prospect at 12, and then you're probably getting a first-round pick caliber player at 43, just based on edge depth. Actually, same thing can be said with wide receiver, that if you get a guy that's the right fit, they can be a first-round talent at 43. And that's something that I fully expect San Francisco to get a great player at 12, great player at 43. And you're going to be thinking, how did San Francisco get like the 8th best player in the draft and like the 25th best player in the draft? It's because one, quarterbacks, so they screw everything up.
Yeah,
and two, there's a lot of really good players in this draft that are like neck and neck with each other. So I don't think there's a huge gap between, say, Kwity Paye and Azeez Ojulari. And everything, a lot of it's fit-based, a lot of it's, do you fit the culture here? Do you fit the role we want you to be in? So, like, I think Tennessee's going to draft Azeez Ojulari because he's what they really need as a speed rusher. But, for example, let's say he doesn't go there. He could be a 49er 20 picks later because some teams might not want a specific guy like Ojulari. They prefer the Miami guys, Jones, Paye, etc.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, this draft is going to be wide open. And I think the biggest thing he said there was not only just the fit, but, do you fit the culture? The Niners are really big on culture and if you really fit into what their system's about. And that's, when John Lynch is doing these recruiting trials and then he's looking at these players, he looks at the type of personality these kids have and things like that. So that goes a long way. He wants to build a certain type of team, like last season. They did a pretty good job in that first round. You got Kinlaw, Ayuk. They didn't do much after that. We added some players, some depth guys that, hopefully they can step up. But those two guys in that first round, Kinlaw and Ayuk, that was huge. Those are the type of guys that we can get that type of talent again. If they trade back, you can get maybe an Ojulari, maybe a J.C. Horn in the first round. You get those two guys in the first round, and add it to this roster, that is absolutely going to be unbelievable. To have J.C. Horn and Azeez Ojulari on the Niners together, I would like that more than just going at 12 and getting Pitts. I love Pitts, but to get those two defensive players on your lineup, those are two guys that can be cornerstone defensive players with Fred Warner, with Nick Bosa, with Javon Kinlaw. With Jason that's crazy.
Yeah. We've had 2 episodes and we haven't really talked much about All-Pro Fred Warner.
I know.
He's a 3rd-round pick and
man. There's so much
is a superstar.
You guys gonna be a star.
Yeah, like a lot of what we talk about is first, 2nd round guys. Fred Warner was a middle of the 3rd round guy, and I have him as the 2nd best linebacker in football. He's going to be great for a long time. San Francisco got a steal there. I remember he had to play a very specific coverage play against Baltimore, and it's like he's the only guy on the planet that can make this play.
I remember it was a pass deflection. Lamar throws it middle of the field, and he just. He passed the flex, and then he gets up and he does this, and he's just like, oh my God. And I was like, I remember that game because I've been
Uh-huh.
watching Warner a lot, BYU guy, and I
Mhm.
was a Mountain West kid growing up. I was in Las Vegas, so I watched a lot of Mountain West. Saw a
Right.
lot of Warner. I liked the kid in college. Third round pick, just like Navarro Bowman, former
Mhm.
49er legend. And I was like, I think this kid has potential. His first year, he was pretty good. Had some forced fumbles here and there, and I was like, yeah, he's got some talent. But
Mhm.
again, he was thrown in the fire. Mike linebacker. They expected him to call the plays, and everyone was like, wow, Mike linebacker is a rookie. That's big. And he really kind of took that role. I think Richard Sherman had a big plan or a big role in helping him become more of a leader because that first year, you can tell he wasn't as vocal as much. That second year, when that Baltimore play, I mean, this guy took command of the huddle. He's like the quarterback of the defense, man. That's the way
Mhm.
that he is, and just the way he sees the field. His coverage instincts are so good. PFF has him as the top graded coverage linebacker out there over the last
Mhm.
year or so. This guy is just great in coverage. I remember my favorite play. I love that Lamar. I love that play in Baltimore. But the interception on Jared Goff, pick six, 2 years back in that
Mhm.
2019 season, that was amazing because the game we played the Rams earlier in the season, similar play, and he runs it to the corner, and I think he deflects it. He didn't get the interception. So flash forward to that game where he picks it. Same play. I remember his same play. You could tell Fred reads the play, intercepts it, jumps it, takes it to the house, and I was like, oh man, this guy remembered the play. So you could tell his brain is always working. He's processing. He must have watched that film so many times. And the kid's special. He's in his last year of his rookie contract. This is a guy that probably needs to get extended soon, or
Yeah.
they may lose him
He's gonna
because that's
reset
how
the
the market
linebacker
works, right?
market. Mhm.
Similar situation to George Kittle last season when he was in the last year of his rookie deal. I don't know, man, if they're going to have the money right now to get him extended. If he plays on a rookie deal this year, they can, franchise tag him next season. But then after that, it's like, you're going to take a chance on losing him. But, the one thing is, and I hate to say it, linebackers are guys that you can find good talent, in the
Right.
draft and replace them. But I would hate to lose Fred. I want them to get it extended within this year or next year. But I could see them maybe throwing a franchise tag on him next season and waiting because, Nick Bosa is also going to be coming up on an extension within the next 2 years. So it's tough. But man, All Pro Fred Warner, sky's the limit on this guy. I think he hasn't even come close to his peak. This, like you said, he's going to get so much better. It's
Right.
unbelievable. But yeah, man, that's the guy they need to extend.
And that can be the scary thing because Warner plays linebacker, and you can talk about Kittle or Juszczyk. They play less important positions, but that's really subjective. And like Kittle and Juice are especially important in the Shanahan run game. So if you're transforming it from like a middling run game to second in the NFL behind the greatest rushing offense in the history of the NFL. Sorry. But if you're with like Warner, what he does as a coverage guy, that's keeping, you don't need to necessarily have the best nickel guy when you have, or the best coverage safeties when Warner can be like, hey, I can cover linebacker, or
Yeah.
I can cover running backs,
Tight
I
end.
can cover tight ends. And Warner is one of the best guys in coverage. I have him right there with Eric Kendricks as like guys that are just locked down. And I think we talk a lot about value. Running backs aren't valuable. Quarterbacks, wide receivers are valuable. But I think a lot of it can be subjective in the manner of they might be more valuable to San Francisco than they are to other teams. And that can be this case Warner, Kittle, Juice, and they might not need superstars at wide receiver because Debo and Ayuk do what they do, and they are really successful in that offense when Jimmy Garoppolo is throwing them the football.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And again, linebackers, it's highly subjective. Some people, like I said, some people are like, oh, well, linebacker you can replace easily. But to me, the way Fred Warner is in this defense is just so special because you got to look at last season. They lost so much talent. You lost Nick Bosa, go down the list. All the players they lost, Richard Sherman. They had no more DeForest Buckner. He was gone. Kinlaw was a rookie. Armstead, he had to move around that line. And just all the injuries they had last season, Fred Warner kept them in so many games. Without Fred Warner, I don't know how we would have even won 2 games, because he put this team in such good position. Like they kept fighting. You could tell he kept saying, "Hey man, don't give up. Let's just keep fighting." The reason they were, like I said, they were in so many games is because of Warner. His coverage, like you said, he could cover a tight end, he could cover a running back. The safeties were hurt sometimes. Jaquiski Tarr got hurt. Jimmy Ward had to go around the field a lot and do extra things. Fred Warner was there, man. He was there all the time to put himself in position to help the linebacker or to help the safeties and the cornerbacks and stuff, man. I don't know, man. Fred Warner to me is just so special. I don't know what they would do without him. Like I said, he's a leader, man. You can't lose a guy like him. But it's tough because do you pay a middle linebacker? Now the market's going to be like $15-16 million when you're paying your tight end $15-16 million. So it's tough, man. I hate the salary cap. I really wish there wasn't one. But man, I think I already know like what's going to happen within the next year or so. When with the Niners, especially the Niner fan base, they love to get the hashtag pay. It's whoever the player is trending. So like when Trent Williams this offseason, it was hashtag pay Trent Williams because they were sending a message to this front office and said, hey, look, we need this guy. Pay Trent Williams. Last season was pay George Kittle. It was pay Jason Verrett. I can already see next season pay Fred Warner if he hasn't been paid yet. They're gonna make a push. So.
Yeah, I think Warner more like unlike anyone else in the wide or the potential linebacker market. You pay Warner. You might not pay Eric Kendricks. He's a little older. Yeah. You might not pay the guys over in Dallas because they've been just wildly inconsistent. But you pay Fred Warner. You get the all-pro caliber guy that's 24 right now.
Yeah,
24,
he's not even 26 years old. The guy's he's got so many years to grow, and he's gotten better every year. He's gotten more tackles every year. His coverage skills have gotten better every year. And again, a leader. That's the thing. He's become a leader of this clubhouse.
Yeah, and when you're in a division with talented quarterbacks, so you have Kyler, Russ, now Matthew Stafford, you have tons of guys that, whether they're running backs out of the backfield or tight ends or wide receivers running crossers, you have a ton of talent in this division, and Fred Warner is just kind of neutralizing that. Is Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, is that duo as good when Fred Warner's patrolling the middle? No.
I don't see it, man, because he's really, like you said, he neutralizes it. And the other guy that's right next to him, Dre Greenlaw, that kid can be special too. And you want to have a good duo because these two guys kind of feed off each other. And, one last point about Fred, his second season, they got Quan Alexander. That was the big free agent. Everybody was hyped up on him. He got hurt. He got, injured. And it was Fred Warner who continued to carry the load. And he took some of that leadership skills from Quan. I think he learned a lot from him. And you can see that. He's just become this pivotal person in this lineup. And I think he's taken those leadership skills. Everybody thought this team was going to fall apart when Quan left. Fred Warner kept them floating. And then Dre Greenlaw stepped up. So those two guys together as a unit are very special together. It's kind of like when we had Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. That intimidating duo, linebacking duo, it's hard for any offense to stop them. Like you said, with any receiver group, with any running back tandem, tight end, when you got those two guys together, they can kind of shut things down, and then your safeties can be a little bit more free to roam, and it takes pressure off your cornerback. So, all-pro Fred, man, there's a reason why we got to pay this guy. He does it all for this team.
Amen to that. And, we're gonna wrap it up a little bit here. Who's the guy that you think we're going to be talking about next show? Whether it's like a small scale signing, maybe a trade, or do you think San Francisco's going to be quiet here and we're going to move into the draft more so?
I think for the most part they're going to move into the draft, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do make a few moves. They still got a little bit of money in cap space. They're still pending for D Ford's contract restructure, so I think they'll have about $16 million in cap space. You want to save about $8 to $9 million, I think, in money for the rookies. So I think they're going to save a little bit. They're not going to go crazy. I do want to see if they can get either Kerry Hyder or K'Wan Williams back. K'Wan's been a solid nickel cornerback through many stretches of his career with us. Probably the best when he's healthy. That's the only issue is health. He probably has a decent market. I think the Jets were a team that he's been linked to. Robert Salah. And the Jets over there, they might try to get him for his team over there. And he's an East Coast guy. So I would love to see K'Wan back. I would love to see Kerry Hyder because, again, I want to add more depth to this team. I hope we can get him back because, again, Nick Bosa coming off a major, major injury. You don't want to just throw him into the fire. You don't want to throw him into the woods. You want to take pressure off him. You got Eddie Cam. Maybe D Ford comes back. You got DJ Jones. You can get Kerry Hyder back. If all these guys are there, it's going to really help Bosa, whether or not they draft someone. So I think that Kerry Hyder's a guy I want them to hopefully sign back, and we can talk about him next week. Yeah. But the other guy I think that we might be talking about next week that I didn't mention this week is Joe Flacco, quarterback I think they might sign him as a backup because there were some links to him. He met with the team this week. He had a workout. He left without signing, but the sources that stated that, I think Rappaport, I think Eric Branch, local California reporter, they basically said that he left, but he's still talking to him. He has other teams that are looking into him. And Niners need a backup. They missed out on almost every backup quarterback on the market. Trubisky was there, Tyrod Taylor, Fitzpatrick, everybody. So there it is. Joe Flacco, they've had a workout with him, and his contract would be less than maybe $1.5 million. I think it'd be a very low contract, 1-year deal. Jimmy, we know he's probably going to be the quarterback next year, but his health has been an issue. And I think they bring in a guy like Flacco, help him be a guy that can take the reins if Jimmy goes down, or if they take a young quarterback in the draft, he can help mentor anybody. He's been in the league for a long time. I know a lot of Niner fans don't like Flacco, but hey, because of the Super Bowl, victory he had against the team, but he's not a bad backup. For a backup role, I think he'd be solid. So I think next Saturday when we're talking, I think we're going to talk about Joe Flacco signing this week to a small little deal to play backup quarterback, because I don't know if Josh Rosen is going to be the answer at backup quarterback. So my prediction this week is Flacco.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I know. I think I saw on your page. I've seen some people like tweet or post about like how they think Flacco is a really good fit in the Shanahan system, and I'm intrigued how a statue can be good in a system like that. But hey, he's has a proven track record. He has won games in the NFL, and as a backup, I think he can be fine. He wasn't the end of the world as the Jets backup last year. He had a couple okay games. He did have he melted down against the Patriots late in the fourth quarter.
He did.
He was fine.
He wasn't horrible as a backup for the Jets. I mean, it's the Jets last season, right? He threw some dimes. I saw some highlights. He was not horrible. But the thing that kind of intrigues me maybe not intrigues me, but why I think he will sign. So when he was with Denver, their quarterback coach at the time, Rich Scolangelo, I can never pronounce his last name. He is now the quarterback coach of the Niners. He used to be the quarterback coach of us when Jimmy first came. He left, was the Denver guy, and now he came back. And he was the quarterback coach of Joe Flacco when Joe Flacco was in Denver. And Joe Flacco also played with Kyle Juszczyk when they were both together in Baltimore. So there's a lot of ties there. And I think they would welcome him into the team. And Kyle Juszczyk this week on KNBR, or was it? I think it was KNBR. He went on the radio and he was talking about, free agency and stuff. And they asked him about Joe Flacco. He goes, "Hey, Joe's a good guy. I love him. Hopefully we can get him on the team." And this is what he said. He says, "I think he'd be a good guy for Jimmy to help him out because he's been in the league a lot and he's went through a lot of criticism himself. And I think Joe Flacco would help Jimmy take, in a lot of ways because of his veteran mindset." So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Flacco may not have the upside that you want from a backup, but I don't think if you're San Francisco, you don't want your backup to end up having to play. So getting a good locker room guy, a good mentor for Jimmy and the offense as a whole, that can be beneficial. And, he's probably still better than Beathard or Rosen or Nick Mullins.
I mean, he's better than those guys, so it can't get worse than them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank everyone for watching. Make sure you like the stream, subscribe to the channel, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, and Twitch. Hey, I got them all right this time, first time. Make sure you follow Raj. I'll throw up his Instagram on the bottom there. Thank you for coming out. And I'm excited to see what San Francisco does moving forward.
Yeah, me too, man. Excited to, see what happens this next week. Thanks for having me on again. And
of course.
Let's see what happens. Let's see if I'm right again next week.
Yeah, go for 2 for 2. That'd be pretty nice.
That would be.
Peace out, folks.
All right, my man. Take care.